The Mark of Elden Hollow. Part 1. The Stirring. In the small coastal town of Elden Hollow, Maine, the rhythm of life had always been dictated by the tides and the seasons. Nestled between the jagged cliffs of Eastbridge County and the dense, whispering expanse of hollow pine forest, the town was a place of quiet routines and familiar faces. St. Gideon's Chapel, perched on Ashridge Hill, stood as its heart, a modest cedar structure where the community gathered for baptisms, weddings, and the occasional potluck. I, Elias Mercer, had served as its caretaker for nearly a decade, tending to both the spiritual and practical needs of my flock. It was a simple life, one I cherished for its predictability. But in the autumn of 2025, that simplicity began to unravel. It started with a fire. The Halloway house, home to Everett and Camille Halloway, was a warm, inviting place on the edge of town, its porch often crowded with neighbors sharing stories over lemonade. When it went up in flames one October night, the town reeled. The blaze was unnatural, too fierce, too sudden. By dawn, nothing remained but a blackened skeleton sinking into the earth. Everett and Camille were gone, their loss a wound that refused to heal. I was there that night, drawn by the glow on the horizon. As I approached, I saw something that haunts me still. Symbols scorched into the wooden beams of the porch, twisted and intricate, like nothing I'd ever seen. In the upstairs window, a figure stood, motionless, watching. Then the wind fell silent, and the fire roared to life. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a shadow cast by the flames. But deep down, I knew better. The town mourned, but grief soon gave way to suspicion. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some questioned what I'd seen, others what I hadn't said. The most vicious rumors suggested I had a hand in the tragedy. I told the truth as best I could, omitting only the figure and the symbols, fearing they'd sound like madness. But lies, even small ones, have a way of festering. One Sunday, during a christening at the chapel, the rumors boiled over. Quinn Halloway, Camille's brother, stormed in, his face twisted with rage. Before I could react, his fist connected with my jaw, sending me sprawling into the pews. "You lying coward," he roared. "You think no one sees what you really are?" Mr. Harrow restrained him, but not before Quinn spat a final threat. "You're next, preacher." The congregation scattered, leaving me alone with the echo of his words. Sleep eluded me after that. Each night, I replayed the fire, the symbols, the figure, the unnatural stillness. I returned to the Halloway ruins, searching for answers, but found only ash and silence. Then, one Thursday night, as I sat with old photos and my cat, Locket, a new sound broke the quiet. A slow, deliberate scratching against the chapel walls. It wasn't the wind or a branch. It was rhythmic, intentional. I followed it with a flashlight, but it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. 3 days later, I found the source. On the back wall of the chapel, hidden by the forest's edge, was a symbol, identical to the one at the Halloway house. Carved deep into the cedar, its grooves were sharp and precise, too intricate for chance. My hands shook as I photographed it and sent the images to Bishop Alder, begging for guidance. That night, sleep came hard, but was shattered by a screech, high-pitched, metallic, like a blade on glass. It moved through the chapel, from the rear to the front doors. The air grew thick, oppressive. Then came 3 slow knocks. Boom, boom, boom. "Who's there?" I stammered. No answer. Then the screech resumed, scraping down the doors until it stopped at the keyhole. 2 soft taps followed, and a rasping voice whispered, "Shh, God." The chapel shook as something slammed against the doors, the hinges groaning. A shadow flashed past the frosted glass, vanishing into the trees at an impossible speed. I collapsed, trembling, and didn't move until dawn. The next morning, Bishop Alder responded. Another priest was coming, but relief was overshadowed by dread. This wasn't just about the Halloways. Something was awake in Elden Hollow, and it was watching. Part 2. The Pale Demon Father. Thorn arrived on November 1st, carried by the first bitter gust of winter. Tall and imposing, with silver hair and bifocals that glinted like ice, he wasted no time on pleasantries. "Where is it?" he asked, his eyes scanning the town as if it held a secret he already half knew. I led him to the chapel, where the symbol still marred the cedar siding, its edges now charred as if burned. Thorn traced the grooves, whispered a prayer, and doused it with holy water. Then he demanded to see the other mark. At the Norwich house, mistakenly called the Holloway house in my panic, we navigated the collapsed ruins. Thorn uncovered a scorched rug in the rubble, revealing a second symbol, preserved beneath the ash. He photographed it, sprinkled holy water, and made a cryptic gesture toward the woods, tracing a cross in the air. Back at the chapel, he called the Vatican, his conversation clipped and vague. "They think it's folklore," he said afterward, his tone heavy with dismissal. I felt hollow, betrayed by the institution I served. We sat in silence, rain tapping the windows, my cat Piper purring in my lap. Later, Thorn insisted we walk. The fog was thick, the streets empty. He spoke of Viking legends, probing the town's history, but his questions felt like a prelude to something darker. "Do you believe me, Father?" I asked. He paused. "I believe something's happening. What it is, I don't yet know." He led me into Hollow Pine Forest, past the chapel, deeper than I'd ever gone. In a clearing, he stopped, wrapping his rosary around his hand. "You believe in sacrifice, Elias?" he asked. Before I could answer, he attacked, kicking my legs out and pinning me to the mud. "You want it?" he shouted into the night. "Take him. I offer him freely." The forest answered. A thunderous step shook the earth. Thorn froze, his gaze rising to something I couldn't see. He flung holy water, muttering, "Begone!" Another step. His trembling intensified. I shoved him off and ran, thorns tearing at my skin, until I reached the chapel and barred the doors. Morning came, and against all reason, I searched for Thorn. I found him at the base of a cedar, naked, bruised, and shivering. "Is it gone?" he rasped. He wouldn't say more. By midday, he boarded the ferry and left without a word. That night, the ferry sank in flames. No survivors. I knew without proof that a symbol lay somewhere in the wreckage. Weeks passed. The whispers in the chapel grew louder, joined by tapping in the walls. Sleep was a memory. Then came the pale demon. It appeared in a snowstorm, its form barely human, tall, emaciated, with eyes like voids. Clifford, a local who'd seen too much, stood with me, clutching burning sage. The demon didn't attack. It wheezed, a sick gurgle, and retreated. "It saw something in you," Clifford said. "You've been marked, chosen." The word chosen chilled me. Clifford pointed to the chapel's cellar, sealed since the Holloway's fire. "That thing didn't kill you. That's opportunity." I resisted, haunted by the memory of the cellar's roar and silence. But the demon's presence lingered, testing us. Restless dreams plagued me. Cold. Watched. Alone. The chapel felt like a trap, a tomb. As dawn painted the windows, I made my choice. "Clifford," I said, waking him, "we're going into the cellar." "Are you sure?" "No," I admitted, "but I think I was always meant to." Part 3. The descent. The cellar door was cold, scratched, and warped, its hinges groaning as we pried it open. The air below was stale, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something sharper, metallic like old blood. Clifford held a flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark to reveal stone walls slick with moisture. The stairs creaked under our weight, each step a descent into the unknown. At the bottom, the cellar was larger than I'd expected, its corners swallowed by shadow. The beam caught glints of something embedded in the walls. More symbols, dozens of them, carved into the stone and pulsing faintly, as if alive. My stomach churned. Clifford cursed under his breath. "This isn't right," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We shouldn't be here." But I felt it, a pull, like a current dragging me deeper. In the center of the room stood a slab of stone, rough-hewn and stained dark. It wasn't an altar, not exactly, but it radiated purpose. Above it, scratched into the ceiling, was the largest symbol yet, its lines so deep they seemed to bleed into the rock. I reached out, my fingers brushing the slab. The air shifted, growing colder. The whispers from my dreams returned, now audible, weaving through the cellar like threads of smoke. They weren't words, but they carried meaning. Stay. See. No. Clifford grabbed my arm. "Elias, we need to go. Now." But I couldn't move. The symbols glowed brighter, their light casting shadows that twisted into shapes, figures, faces, things that weren't human. The pale demon's wheezing echoed somewhere in the dark, closer than before. "It's here," Clifford said, his voice breaking. He fumbled with the sage, trying to light it, but his hands shook too violently. The slab vibrated under my touch, and a vision flooded my mind. The Halloways, standing in this cellar, their faces serene as they carved symbols into their own flesh. Everett's voice, calm and certain. "It's the only way." Camille's hand, steady as she drew the blade. Then fire, consuming them, sealing their offering. I stumbled back, gasping. Clifford caught me, his eyes wide with panic. "What did you see?" "They chose it," I said, my voice hollow. "They weren't victims. They were willing." The wheezing grew louder, the demon's presence filling the cellar like a tide. Its form emerged from the shadows, taller now, its limbs impossibly long. Its eyes locked onto mine, and I felt it, recognition. It didn't attack. It waited. Clifford lit the sage, its smoke curling upward. "We can't fight this," he said. "But you're marked, Elias. It wants you to decide." The whispers surged, urging me toward the slab. I saw myself there, blade in hand, blood pooling in the stone's grooves. The demon's gaze promised answers. Power. An end to fear. But at what cost? I turned to Clifford. "Burn it," I said. "All of it." He didn't hesitate. We doused the cellar with kerosene from the chapel's stores, the symbols hissing as the liquid touched them. The demon watched, unmoving, as I struck the match. Flames erupted, consuming the slab, the walls, the ceiling. The whispers became screams, then faded. We fled, the fire chasing us up the stairs. The chapel groaned as the blaze spread, its timbers cracking like bones. Outside, snow fell, blanketing the town in silence. The demon was gone, or so I hoped. Elden Hollow is a ghost town now. Most fled after the chapel burned. I stay, living in a small cabin on the cliffs, watching the sea. The symbols are gone, but I feel them still, etched into my dreams. Clifford left, unable to bear the weight of what we'd seen. Sometimes, in the quiet, I hear the wheezing. I don't know if it's memory or warning, but I know one thing. The pale demon didn't die in that fire. It's waiting, patient as the tide. And I wonder, when it returns, will I be ready? Or will I too choose the slab? The first winter after the fire was the harshest Elden Hollow had seen in decades. The Atlantic roared against the cliffs, sending sprays of icy foam that clung to my cabin's windows like ghostly fingerprints. I kept to myself, avoiding the few stubborn souls who remained in town. The post office still operated, barely, and I'd trek there weekly for supplies, my boots crunching through snow that seemed to swallow sound itself. Each trip, I felt eyes on me. Not human, not animal, but something older, hungrier. I told myself it was paranoia, the residue of trauma. But the marks on my dreams told a different story. They weren't dreams, not really. Every night, I returned to the cellar, standing before the stone slab. The symbols pulsed, their glow seeping into my skin. The pale demon loomed, its wheezing breath a lullaby that promised peace if I'd only surrender. I'd wake gasping, my hands clawing at my chest, expecting to find blood. My cabin's walls began to feel like a cage, too thin to keep out what stalked the dark. By February, the noises started. At first, it was subtle, a faint scratching beneath the floorboards, like Locket's claws when she was still alive. But Locket was gone, vanished the night of the chapel fire. The scratching grew louder, more deliberate, moving from the floor to the walls, then the ceiling. I'd lie awake, flashlight in hand, tracing the sound as it circled me. It wasn't random. It was searching. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I tore up a floorboard, expecting rats or rot. Instead, I found a symbol, carved into the wood's underside, its grooves slick with a dark, oily substance that smelled of copper and decay. My stomach lurched. I burned the board in the fireplace, but the smoke curled into shapes. Faces, hands, eyes, that lingered too long before dissipating. That night, the scratching didn't stop. It followed me into sleep. The dreams changed. The slab was no longer empty. I saw myself lying on it, my wrists slit, blood pooling in the stone's grooves. The pale demon stood over me, its void-like eyes gleaming with satisfaction. But there was another figure now, cloaked in shadow, its voice a chorus of whispers. You were chosen. You cannot run. I'd wake screaming, the cabin's air thick with the demon's wheeze. I tried to leave, packed a bag, booked a bus ticket to Portland. But as I reached the town's edge, the road vanished into fog so dense it felt alive. My flashlight's beam died, and the wheezing surrounded me, closer than ever. I stumbled back to the cabin, the fog parting like a curtain behind me. The message was clear. Elden Hollow wouldn't let me go. March brought a discovery that broke what little resolve I had left. While clearing snow from the cabin's porch, I found tracks, too large for a man, too deliberate for a beast. They circled the cabin, stopping at each window, as if something had peered inside. At the cliff's edge, the tracks ended, replaced by a new symbol, etched into the frozen ground. It was different, more complex, its lines radiating outward like a starburst. I didn't photograph it. I didn't pray. I just stood there, knowing it was a summons. That night, the cabin shook. Not from wind or waves, but from something beneath. The scratching became pounding, the wheeze a roar. I barricaded the door, clutching a kitchen knife, but the walls groaned, splintering under an unseen force. The air grew heavy, the shadows twisting into forms that clawed at the edges of my vision. The pale demon didn't appear, but its presence was everywhere, pressing against my mind, whispering one word, now. The floorboards buckled, and the symbol I'd burned reappeared, glowing through the ash. The knife slipped from my hand as the whispers grew louder, not from the cabin, but from inside me. My legs moved against my will, carrying me to the cliff where the new symbol waited. The sea roared below, its waves black and endless. The fog returned, thicker, alive with shapes that weren't human. Figures from the cellar, the Halloways, Father Thorn, all watching. I saw the truth then. The pale demon wasn't a creature. It was a conduit, a servant of something vast, older than the cliffs, older than the sea. The symbols weren't curses. They were keys, unlocking a door I'd been chosen to open. The Halloways had known. They'd chosen the fire to seal their part of the bargain. Thorn had tried to offer me in their place, but the entity wanted me willing, like them. The cliff's edge crumbled under my feet. I felt the pull, not just of gravity but of purpose. The slab was there in my mind, its surface warm, inviting. The whispers promised everything, knowledge, power, eternity. All I had to do was step forward. I don't remember falling, but I remember the cold, the water closing over me, and the silence that followed. I thought it was death. I was wrong. I woke in the cellar. Not the chapel's cellar, but something deeper, vaster, carved from stone that pulsed like flesh. The slab was real, its surface slick with my blood, though I bore no wounds. The symbols covered every wall, every inch of the ceiling, glowing with a light that burned my eyes. The pale demon stood at the chamber's edge, its wheezing now a hymn, joined by the cloaked figure, multitudes in one, its form shifting with every glance. "You chose," it said, its voices a cacophony of the lost. "Now see." The slab vibrated, and the world dissolved. I saw Elden Hollow, not as it was, but as it had been. Centuries of sacrifices, each mark a life given to keep the entity sated. I saw the Vikings, the first to carve the symbols, their ships sinking as payment. I saw the Halloways, smiling as they burned. I saw myself, not just now, but in countless lives, always returning, always choosing. The entity wasn't bound to Elden Hollow. It was everywhere, in every shadow, every whisper. The chapel, the fire, the demon, they were theatre, a ritual to draw me here. And I'd played my part. The chamber shook, the symbols flaring. The entity's form solidified, too vast to comprehend, its eyes a void that swallowed light. It reached for me, and I felt my mind unravel, my body dissolve into the stone. The last thing I heard was my own voice, screaming, joined by the Halloways, Thorn, and countless others, all trapped in the entity's eternal hunger. Elden Hollow is gone now, erased from maps, its cliffs collapsed into the sea. No one speaks of it, no one remembers. But on moonless nights, when the tide is low, fishermen swear they hear wheezing from the deep and see symbols glowing beneath the waves. They don't linger. They know better. As for me, I'm still here, in the chamber that never ends. The slab is my home, the symbols, my skin. The pale demon watches, and the entity feeds. I was chosen, and I chose. There's no escape, only the endless cycle of sacrifice. And somewhere, in the dark, another town is stirring, another mark being carved. The entity is patient. It always finds its next.